Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, why do we learn badminton the way we do? And how do these great players get better than us so much more quickly? Maybe there's something they're being taught that we're not. Maybe there are better ways to be doing what we are doing. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today in our podcast. And we have the honour of talking to Ron Daniels, who has been coaching across Europe and Asia for decades, collecting knowledge, talking to coaches, and finding different ways, better ways, possibly, to actually coach and learn badminton. So, let's get right into it.
Thank you very much, Ron, for meeting with me here in our virtual studio. We really enjoy talking to people in badminton who are pushing the envelope, who are trying to do new things, who are thinking in new ways, and it definitely seems like you are one of those people. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much for having me, because it's not everywhere that I get to share my views on my special views on badminton. So I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you very much. And just on that, before we kind of get into things, how receptive have people been to receiving your new ideas that go against the traditional ideas? My perception of the general federations, confederations, is that they're a little stuck in their ways sometimes, especially with these types of topics.
I think that badminton is a very traditional sport. Coaches are many times ex-player or former players, and they have learned it a special way, and if their way was good enough, then it's still good enough to use it for the new generation. So that's very much the attitude they have. So changes are not going very fast in badminton. There are also people who are very much at the edge of development, but you have to search them with a torch.
You have to really get that magnifying glass out, trying to find them.
That's right. But they are out there, and I've met them, and it's some of them are extremely interesting to talk to, and also very open-minded. But you also get a lot of resistance from people saying, that sounds very strange. And in badminton, nothing sounds strange to me. So I'm always open for new things.
Yes, that's great. That's amazing. And I find that quite an interesting point, actually, because I've gone through the level 2 qualification here in the UK, and one of the topics within that is creating your own style. But it seems like when you try and create your own style, everyone tells you it's wrong.
What is your own style, you can ask, yeah? I don't believe anybody got his own style or own opinion. It's based on what other people are doing, and you make a collection of those people. And some people collect from a very broad range of other people's opinion, and some people keep it very close to what they know themselves. And that forms your own opinion, but it's not really your own. It's the opinion of many other people collected in one person.
Yes, but I guess there's always a trailblazer in each unique part, such as the amount of jumping or diving that you see nowadays. People never used to be doing that really as much as they do now.
No. It's that is also something that I use a lot in my examples. Yeah, they say, well, we have to look at players in what they're good at. Suppose that the coach of Lee Chung-wei was telling him, don't dive all the time, don't fall on the floor all the time. Yeah, stand up and do your footwork properly. Yeah, then we would not have the type of players like Lee Chung-wei was and is today. Yeah, and I think he really contributed to something. So a coach should also recognize, okay, it's strange what he's doing, but it's functional, it's working. So why should I stop it?
Yes, yeah, and I think that's a great way of looking at it. So before we dive more into your philosophies and your ideas on badminton, it'd be great to understand a bit more about you. So when was it that you started playing badminton? I definitely hear an accent that you have there.
My accent is probably Dutch, or it can be mixed with a little bit of Danish too, because that's where I spend my life. I spent the first 30 years of my life in Holland, where I was born in the south of Holland, in Delft, a city called Delft. And I started playing badminton at Velo, one of the bigger clubs in Holland. And not at that time, but now it is. And I was 8 years old, and that was in 1966.
Oh, lovely.
So,
So you've been
That
playing
says something
badminton for a
about my
little while.
age too, yeah.
Badminton for a little while.
I've been playing badminton and not so much as a badminton player. I was national youth champion in Holland and made it to the highest division in competition. But I was not as much interested in playing than I was in coaching. Already at a very young age, I was interested in coaching.
So what is it that made you get involved in badminton in the first place?
My parents, they played badminton in a normal gym, very low. It's very much what you would see in England in the past a lot, playing in small community centers and so on. And that's where my parents played too. And my brother and I were the first youth members of our club. And then we started to play in an old vegetable auction hall. In a little village called Kinshasa. and there we literally had to wipe off the leisure leaves from the floor, and then we could play badminton. And that's how I started to play badminton, but I was very passionate about it, and we had the possibility to almost train every day, play every day if we wanted. So we had a big group of kids who actually, a few of them actually became quite good badminton players too. And that's how we developed into a pretty big club in Holland.
Amazing. And were you working with coaches there, or was it just you playing with the other kids, and then maybe your parents or older players helping you here and there?
There was not much coaching in the beginning. That happened after 2 or 3 years where we had some former players again, some what I told you before, yeah, some former good players who came to our club and instructed us a little bit. And my God, am I glad I forgot all those things. Now, but as you can imagine, if you play badminton for 50 years, you've been through a lot of development also. There's a material development, of course, because when I started it was with wooden rackets, and then we get aluminium rackets, then we get carbon fiber rackets, until the rackets we got today. In the beginning we didn't restring, we just replaced one string or two strings in a racket if they broke.
Okay.
That's what you did with, you had repair sets, so I repaired my own rackets. Yeah. From wooden rackets, you could do that with wooden rackets, you could also do it with aluminium rackets, and after that it changed. But also, because of the material development, you also have a technical development. When you smash with a racket of 8 kilograms, or 7.5, 8 kilograms, which was normal in a wooden racket, that's not the same type of smash that you would have in today's Li-Ning racket of 16 kilograms, for example. So all the technique changed, and we also had the big change, of course, in the system of the rules of badminton. Yeah, they changed from 15 in men's single and men's double and the doubles in general until 21 now, where you get a point for each rally. That gives a total new tactics. So that there's been a lot of developments. Yeah, and I'm not playing badminton anymore now for the last 30 years almost. I'm only coaching, and I never do any training, and I never do any playing myself. But still I want to show the strokes. So you have to be very good in visualizing how it's done. And just by looking at strokes on the internet, I can copy them and show it to young players. Yeah. I'm pretty good technically skilled. And my footwork is something you should listen to and not act like I do it.
That's great. So you never, like, when you're coaching, you never feel like, oh, I'll just jump on court a little bit and just push them a little bit. It's more that you want to be on the sidelines, viewing what they're doing, seeing what they're doing, and advising.
I love to be on the sideline. If I go on court, and I seldom do, but if I go on court, I play a net game because I really like the net techniques to play and
Yes.
to do all the type of spins. So that's the only game you can see me do, and nothing else. I'm not interested in playing badminton at all. So I'm interested in watching other people and making other people grow as much as I can. So that's my passion.
Okay, that's great. I think it's quite unusual from what I've seen that you have coaches that don't want to play as well. A lot of the coaches I've spoken to, I guess more of the younger coaches as well, when they're watching people play and they're coaching people, they're like, oh, I get the itch to try and play myself as well.
It's I got a very double attitude towards that. Many coaches are former players, and they got the disadvantage that they coach like they've been coached, so they're very much coaches in the past. I don't say that all of them are like that, but many are. And I think badminton coaching is not just a hobby, it's a profession. It's a really difficult and complicated profession if you do it right.
Yes.
I spend still today, I'm in my 60s now, and I spend every single day 5 to 7 hours on theoretical badminton. So I'm writing my second book at the moment. I wrote more than 700 articles on the internet on badminton, on all kind of subjects. I'm extremely detailed in my technical analyzing. So it takes you a lot of time, and it's like the Dunning-Kruger effect. The more you know about badminton, the more you realize you know nothing.
Yes, definitely. Something that I think I've witnessed myself going through coaching courses and trying to coach people. People coming up to you asking questions, you're like, I guess I can come up with something for that.
Well, it's if you realize that, and I meet many people who are saying, well, I know pretty much about badminton. I said, well, let's see. And usually within a very short while they realize that they do not know as much as they thought they knew. And that's what the Dunning-Kruger effect is all about, yeah? So.
Yes, definitely. So I'm interested then, you mentioned that you grew up in the Netherlands, and then you also have partly a Danish accent. So when did you decide to go over to Denmark, and why?
First of all, I've been to Denmark a few times, and then I met my former wife, and she was Danish, but she started to study in Holland, so we lived in Holland for a while. And then I get the opportunity to become a professional coach in the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s. And I took that opportunity. So I was one of the first foreign coaches in Denmark. I already did the Danish coach education at that time, so I was interested in the Danish way of coaching. I learned Danish, obviously. I was not very good at it in the beginning, but I learned it. And in the end, I'm fluently Danish too. So there's a lot of so much knowledge in Denmark. Yeah. If you want to read something, there's two languages. You can read something in English, which is not the most modern view on badminton, and you can read it in Danish. And in Danish, there's so many books that come out. So it was a very interesting language for me to learn, and I could be a professional badminton coach there, living of playing coaching badminton, and that's something that I really enjoy doing. So we moved to Denmark, and it was not my Danish wife that pressed on. It was the Dutch guy who wanted to go to Denmark.
That's great. And what was the badminton, I guess, industry, the badminton setup like at that point when you moved to Denmark?
badminton was still one of it's still a big sport in Denmark, but the members there were really a lot of members at that time, and Danish clubs did special things. They had the kids, they came out of school at 3 o'clock and they went to the badminton club, instead of going to care centers where they take care of young people out of school. The badminton clubs did that. Right. There were even possibilities to make your homework there. There were cafeterias where they served evening meals, and the whole atmosphere in Denmark was breathing badminton. It was really a great time then. Many people playing. There was a big development. There was also the development of the technology at that time. So it was really nice to come from a country like Holland, where badminton is not such a big sport, to come to Denmark, where all of a sudden you're in the number 2 sports of the country. Beside football, badminton was the biggest sport at that time. So and there was a lot of knowledge, and I'm always been interested in gaining knowledge. I was back then, and I'm still now. And I had the opportunity after a few years to join the elite coach education from the Danish Badminton Federation, and I was the first one ever, not non-Dane, to do that. That was I use nothing from that education anymore, because it's also from 30 years, 35 years ago. It's not something you use today. But the way of thinking they did in that courses, that is still something you use today. It's very detailed. It is trying to look for the things that are upcoming in the future and not what you see today. When I look at how people analyze games today, it's like a travel journal. They only describe what they see. Yeah. Hey, listen, you don't have to describe what you see. I can see that myself. Yeah, I want to know what's behind it, and that what makes it interesting to be in Denmark, because the coach education was at a much higher level, and I had the possibility to work with Finn Trerup and with Kenneth Larsen, which was at that time the best coach there was in Europe, really. Yeah? And he still is a very important coach in badminton. So yeah, I had great opportunities, and that I would never have had that in Holland.
Wow. So even at that point, there was quite an industry developing then in Denmark, and the expertise were there in terms of developing players, developing coaches, and really pushing the boundaries of the sport.
I think badminton has always been very important. Denmark was one of the first countries that took over from England the badminton sport in the 50s, even before that, in the 40s. They were already quite good in playing badminton. Strangely enough, it was America before that time which was dominating in badminton. It moved to England, of course, and from England it moved to Denmark. And there were so many good coaches at that time who pushed each other. And what I liked about Denmark is the open-mindedness to talk about things. In Holland, if you had something special, you kept it for yourself. You didn't tell somebody else, because then they didn't have it to tell to the players. And in Denmark, it was sharing information, and trying to make each other as a coach better. And I think that's something I still do today. I love to share information. And that is also what makes you a better coach, and it helps the country to become a better country. So coach education for me is sharing knowledge as much as you can to everybody.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, because as a coach, your job is to educate people into new ideas and how to improve, right? So it's a bit of a strange situation where you have coaches that are so defensive and so protective of their ideas. The whole point is for you to share your ideas as a coach, right?
Yeah, it's after my time in Denmark, I spent some time as a Landestrainer in Germany, And some of the coaches said to me, "You shouldn't share all the things you got. You have to keep it for yourself." I said, "No, I'm not. I want to share it with everybody." Yeah, and it doesn't matter if you take over my ideas. My ideas have developed, and you didn't have that process of development. You only take the result. But I am not at the result anymore. I develop on. I go forwards. So what I give to you is what I did yesterday, yeah? Because I'm already working on tomorrow. I don't care if you take my stuff from yesterday, because you may take it into a different direction, which I can gain from again. Maybe you go in a direction I didn't think about with the results. Right. And I've seen that many times with my coaches. I come up with an idea, and they take that idea and bring it to the next level. I never thought about that next level. They did. And they give it back to me, and now I got it, and I got the next level again. It's a dynamic process of developing, and I love that. And I'm never afraid to give my top secrets away, because they're not a secret.
Yes, I think that's a great way to operate. Would you say that then the coaches that are thinking about it in a more defensive way, the reason they do that is because they think they found something and they think, well, that's it then. I found this special sauce. I'm going to keep doing this special sauce forever. I don't need to develop it anymore. I don't need to think too much more deeply about it. Instead of your way of always developing. Even though I found this good thing, can I find a better thing?
It's the coaches who are not curious enough, who don't want to share.
Right.
Have you ever read the book Who Removed My Cheese?
No.
Oh well,
it sounds fascinating.
Yeah, you should you should read it. It's a very thin book. It's about a maze where two mouses have found a lot of cheese, and one of the mouses went on to find other cheese, and the other one said, "No, I got this big amount of cheese, but it's finished one day." Yeah. So try to find the book. It's amazing. It helps you in many parts of life. Very simple book. It's a bestseller worldwide.
Okay. Yeah, I will definitely look that up.
Good. But again, in coaches also, yeah. Many coaches are not so sure of themselves, and they find something, and if I don't tell to anybody, they cannot kill my idea. Right. I love it when people kill my idea, because then I have to think better. I have to try to achieve a better product. Yeah? So I'm not so afraid of that. And if you don't dare to write your opinion down on badminton, that means that what would other people think about it? I don't give a shit what other people think about it. This is what I think.
Right.
Yeah? Take it or leave it. You don't have to do anything with it. You don't please me with it by reading it or using it or not using it. It is my picture of that day, what I wrote down, and take it or leave it. It's very easy.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Something you mentioned there in terms of some of the coaches that kind of don't believe in themselves or aren't sure of themselves. I think that's definitely something that I definitely had when I was started coaching. I started coaching when I was about 19, so when I was coming into the environment, I kind of felt like, okay, I'm the coach, so I should know everything. So, if someone complains about something or questions something or asks me something that I'm not sure about, then you do get very defensive. You get more sensitive about it. So is there an easy way to get around that?
Well, don't tell bullshit. So if you don't know it, if you do not know it, don't tell it. Yeah. So I'm very honest about it. I got an opinion about things. Mostly I can answer right away. If I cannot answer it right away, I said, listen, I'm not sure. I will look it up, see how it fits in my views of badminton, and I will tell you. And I don't tell you next year, I tell you tomorrow. But you see many coaches who says, yes, but we're not going to discuss this. This is the way I want to have it done. No, it's not. If you cannot convince a player to do something, there's something wrong with your argument.
Yes.
And if a player asks something and you cannot, if a player says, why do we do this practice? Yeah, because I tell you so, don't do it. Then I say, don't do it. Yeah?
Yeah.
So that's not an answer. Yeah? He can give his opinion why he does it, and if he doesn't have an opinion about it, that means he's just doing something to keep you occupied, not really to learn you something.
Yeah.
Yeah? And that's a lot of things are done that way. Yeah? I had a big discussion in Denmark one time where I said it was about a warming up. We had to run in the hall for warming up. And then I say, why do I have to run in the hall to warm up for badminton? What do runners do? Do they play badminton to warm up for running? Yeah? We have limited space on court, most of the clubs, most of the players, yeah? And still, we have the hall, and we start running, and do all kind of exercises out court. Can you not find of an exercise to do on court to do the warming up? So we use our badminton time instead of doing, if I want to run, I go to an athletic clubs. So use your time efficiency. Think a little bit more creative. So and then they said, well, if you don't do the warming up like this, you get injuries later on in your training. Yeah. So I didn't do warming up, and one of my players, after 1.5 hours, twisted his ankle, or one of the ligaments went out. There's something. It's because you didn't do a warming up. I said, listen, this is 1.5 hours ago. Yeah. If you are not warm now, there's something wrong. Yeah? You didn't twist your ankle because you didn't do a warming up. You twist your ankle because you're not in a good condition. Yeah? You get tired in the end. You twist your ankle because they cannot support the type of training you're doing. It's got nothing to do with the warming up.
Yes.
Yeah? And it's the same as...
Yeah, I think that makes total sense.
Yeah. It's also when they say, yeah, well, people are not, they need to stretch and warm up and so on to be able to do something extraordinary. I said, well, first of all, if I play a game, I'm not starting like a wild man. Yeah? I'm not doing the same kind of footwork and jumps and stuff that I would do after in the second half of the second game. Yeah. So I do it very easily in the beginning. Yeah. If I need to do something extraordinary, it is supported by adrenaline, for example. Yeah? And that makes perfect sense. Yeah? People 20,000 years ago didn't stand still when there was a saber-tooth tiger behind them. Yeah? They started to run, and they run as fast as they could. Yeah? And they didn't say to the saber-tooth tiger, hey, wait a minute. I need to do some warm up first. Yeah. No, you do it on adrenaline. Yeah. And you react. And that's exactly the same in sports. I don't say it is a bad idea to do a warming up. I just say you can be much more creative with it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I think we're seeing much more crossover now in terms of different sports where the training comprises much more sport-specific work than the kind of decompartmentalized kind of training routines that you have in terms of breaking things down to a really excessive extent, or trying to do things from other sports, warm-ups and things that are irrelevant. And instead, people are now trying to train more sport-specific, whether that's competing, sparring, training in a more match condition, where they're actually developing their skills to be utilized in. It makes sense, right?
It totally does. It totally does. Yeah. It's. I take a little example again. People copy. They just copy what they see. And for example, you see people standing with their hand on their knees, turning their knees. Yeah. I don't know if you've seen that before. Yeah. They're standing bent forward a little bit with their hands on their knees, and then they circling their knees. Knees are not meant to circle. That's not what the ligament does. Yeah? So what do? Is you create space to get an injury to your knees.
Right.
That's stupid. Yeah, you want that to be as solid as possible, in the direction that you need it, not in the directions that you don't want it. In a circle. If you do that, you end up in the hospital. Yeah. And why do people do it? It's very simple. They see it and say, "Oh, that looks like fun. Let's do it." Oh, it's not. It's stupid. Yeah. So ask questions. Why do I do things? Yeah? Is it sensible? The biggest example, and then you really get into my subject of thinking different. Yeah. Everybody is doing the archery movement in badminton. The archery movement, I'm right-handed player, you point with your left hand to the shuttle, you pull your right arm backwards, you're standing completely sideways to the shuttle, you move with chassé steps to the back line, and you hit the shuttle in a non-rotational manner forwards, following where your hand is following the motion of the stroke, without any rotation. Everybody is doing that in the world.
Yes.
And everybody is wrong. That's not the way we play badminton.
Right.
And what you do is you create an attractor, and an attractor that is attractore is habits that are so stuck that you cannot get rid of it anymore. Yeah. So look at youth players. What they all do is pull their racket arm behind their body.
Yes.
That's not what top players are doing. They try to take the shuttle in front of their body. If you do that, if you pull your arm backwards and try to run normally backwards, it's impossible. You will do sidewards walking. If you do sidewards walking, you're standing against the feet. And against the feet is, if I got my left foot in front, and I play very fast in my backhand side, I'm locked down. If I got my right foot in front and they play in my forehand side in the rear corner, I'm locked. I cannot even react because I'm standing in the wrong way. Yeah. So you see top players walking backwards. They're not running, they're walking. They never have the racket high. It irritates me if I come in a hall and there's a coach standing there and says, "Racket high, keep your racket high." Why the hell should I have my racket high when I play a clear? I probably get a drop or a smash, then I have to put my racket down. If I got my racket up and I want to move backwards, that will bother me. My racket will be in the way. If I got my racket up and I walk backwards, my back will be hollow. And try to make big steps with a hollow back. You cannot. Your steps are limited to a very small step because you're walking backwards with a hollow back. That's why all top players got their racket down. And they take
it was
their racket
interesting.
up.
When we spoke last time, you showed me.
Sorry.
You showed me the video with the treadmill in your badminton center.
Right.
Where you were having a young girl walking backwards, and the difference between her arms being up and her arms being down, and the length of stride that she had. And I found that very interesting. Is that something you use a lot?
It's yes, I use it. I have the treadmill in my badminton hall because of this. I do backwards running in the treadmill. I also do chassés, and that is to get rhythm and so on. But backwards running is very important. And I forgot about it. I already showed you that one, yeah. But we did research on, and just test. Research is a big word, yeah. But I did test in my home, and look at the different size of steps people taking backwards if they got the racket up and behind their body. And the difference is up to 15 centimeters per step. 15 centimeters, if that's a lot in a step. Yeah. If you got your racket up, you have to run in order to make that amount of stops to the back line. If you got your racket down, you can walk. I don't know if you noticed, but top players never running. They walk.
No.
Yeah. I even have a practice in my hall with young kids, and I called it Walking with Lin Dunn. Because Lin Dunn can really walk like casual, yeah? I mean, he doesn't even seems to bother. He just walks around the court. Yeah, that doesn't mean he doesn't accelerate. Of course he does. Yeah, but he usually walks on court, and he can cover all the corners. Why does he do that? It's because of his racket position. Yeah. So if you walk towards the net, yeah, you got your racket stretched out. So your feet are following your racket. If you walk backwards, your racket is following your feet. And that's something that we forgot in youth training. And it's very, very simple. You do the test and you see it's wrong. Now, the next thing that's wrong if you do the archery movement, that is everybody wants to have supination, pronation movements in their strokes. Do the archery movement and you take any supination and pronation movement out of your arm. You use the sheer force of the circle movement, and the body movement. And that is what the kids are using. And if you analyze, for example, baseball throwers, the pitcher, they got extreme supination in their throwing. And in badminton say stroke is just like throwing a ball. Yeah, but it depends on how you throw the ball. If you throw the ball without any rotation, it's nothing. As soon as you add rotation to it, it starts to be interesting. Because now you added speed to your throwing. What I do a lot in my training is obstruction training. I make the possible impossible. So, if they're standing up, and they do this archery thing, which they've been told, they make this long movement, and they can do it, no problem. So I set them down on the floor. They have to sit down, legs stretched out. If you do the same movement now, your racket will hit the floor. So you cannot do it anymore. What I then do is I put the racket in an angle towards the net of 90 degrees, and I'd only let them make the rotation movement, so the pronation movement, and I don't let them continue. I make a window wiper as the first stroke. So an angle to it, 90 degrees, and a window wiper. That's the first stroke they learn, sitting down.
Okay.
After they learn this, you let them stand up and they can play a perfect drop. All of them.
Wow.
Within the first few hours of getting to the training.
Wow. Yeah.
And that is just by the frontal approach to it. When you look at footwork, your forehand corner, if you make a lunge into your lung into your forehand corner, and you do your fall out step, you limited all the cross strokes with young players. Why can senior players do it? It's because they got a lot of power. Young players don't have that power, so they only limited to play long line strokes, and many times they even have to correct it, the grip to a backhand grip, in order to keep the shuttle inside the court. So now the forehand side is definitely your weakest corner, because in the forehand side you hit the shuttle behind your body with a backhand grip in order to play it long line, which is terrible condition to be under. So I never use this step with young people, with young players who come the first time. The first thing I do is to learn them in China jump. China jumps are very powerful jumps. It's not very easy. So I try to do that without any power. How do I do that? I put them on the trampoline and let them practice the jump. Without a trampoline, it's very hard work. On the trampoline, it's fun. It doesn't cost any power. And I can do exactly the same on the round the head side. And I can do exactly the same on the trampoline to do a jump smash. So there is not a kid of 9 years old who can do a jump smash, but they can do the training technique on the trampoline. They go up, they bend their knees, they hollow their back, and they make a stroke movement with the racket on a trampoline.
Right.
So, in my badminton hole, there is a trampoline. Why? It's for
Nice.
the technique of jumping.
I think that makes a lot of sense in terms of what we're speaking about here. From what I understand so far, you don't want to be turning side on. You want to stay front onto the net, and then either walking or kind of jogging backwards to get to the rear court.
Right.
And even walking forwards or maybe striding forwards towards the net with the racket out in front of you, instead of the racket close to you or out wide. You want it outstretched to be reaching for that shuttle instead of your feet leading you. You want that racket leading you forwards.
Many.
In terms of moving backwards,
Yeah.
go on.
I've one other thing to add to going to the front. Yeah. Many players have their upper arm against the side of their body. Yeah.
Right.
And the racket can be a little bit up, or the underarm can be a little bit up, but the upper arm is against their body. Yeah? And I want to avoid it as much as possible. It makes the backhand very, very difficult to get
Right.
at the right height. Yeah. And I want them to be aware of that the feet are following the racket. So what do? I tie a rope to the head of the racket, a small thin rope. I'm standing outside the court on the forehand side.
Okay.
The girl or the boy is standing in the middle of the court, and we throw a shuttle to the forehand side. I pull the racket. And the first time they get a shock because I pull the racket out of their hand. Yeah? But very fast they get the grip of it. Yeah? And there you see that they get this reaction of following the racket. It's literally following the racket. It is not stretching out. It is almost throwing your racket out. It's got two very important points. The first one is that your footwork will speed up if you do that. Yeah, you don't have a slow reaction. You will automatically make a start step, so not a split step anymore, but an unequal landing of your feet to get a start step, and you reach out to the shuttle. If you got your upper arm against your body and you stretch out your racket to the corner, which most kids do, then even the forehand corner, which is very close to it, is 1.5 meters away. Yeah? If you stretch out your arm and your racket, the shuttle in a single is not more than 40 or 50 centimeters away for you. So it's also a mental thing. If I keep my racket to my body, it's very far. If I stretch my racket out, it's a little effort to get there. Yeah?
Yes.
And it works.
I would assume that using that same principle, if you are a player, say you're in the mid court and you're looking to try and cut out the rear court, if you keep your racket higher, would you then have the same kind of mental optimism about getting to a shuttle that is going over you and cutting it out instead of letting it go behind you and having to move backwards?
There's a little difference, or a big difference, to go to the side and to the back court with your racket. First of all, let's take the easy side. The easy side is the round the head side, because there you automatically keep your body much more to the net than your side. Yeah, it's much more frontal. Yeah? Now, it's a complete wrong word, around the head. It's not around the head. It's not even above the head. It's in front of the head. Yeah. So what you do is you open up your hand. So you got your shake hand grip, yeah, and the thing you do is you make a pronation movement right away, and the pronation movement opens your fingers with your open fingers towards the net, and you keep your arm in front of you. Now you got totally flexibility of your elbow here. I can even play a cross if I take it in front of me. As soon as I take it above me, my elbow flexibility is already not so big. If I take it behind me, I don't have any elbow flexibility left. So I can only play a long line. Does it happen sometimes? Yes, if you're a lazy bastard and you're too late all the time, you will play around the head. But if you're anticipating and you open up your stroke right of your racket right away, your hand, yeah, and take the shuttle in front of you, you can play around the head cross easily. So that's one thing. So I keep my racket in front of me and not very high. Yeah? The round the head I can also play even at hip level if needed. It's just a matter of turning my racket even more. Yeah? And Mia Houdini, you could see her do it, the Indonesian Dutch girl who was in the Olympics in Athena, yeah, in the final. She could do it like that. Yeah. On the forehand side, it is everybody moves his racket backwards first. Yeah? If you do a China jump, you don't need to put it backwards because your legs will move backwards in the jump. Yeah, so that's what I call a passive, non-interceptual China jump. Yeah, you jump backwards, and your racket automatically, your shoulder automatically turn with your hips. Yeah, and you can still make a retreat stroke, so go forwards and backwards again. If you cut your arm completely behind you, you cannot make the retreat movement, and the retreat movement is what gives extra power to the China jump strokes. Yeah, just pulling back very fast. Yeah. So you move sidewards with your arm, and because of the jump, you will turn a little bit. You get the angle. You don't do it with your racket.
Okay.
I say you don't do it. Again, there's this same little bastard who is lazy. He does it. Yeah. But he's also limited right away. Yeah. When you look at Victor Axelsen, for example, what he did especially is cut out all the strokes behind him. Does he never play a stroke behind him? Yes, he does. But if he don't want to, he doesn't do it. So if he speeds up and he wants to take initiative, he keeps the shuttle as much as possible in front of him. It also has consequences, and the consequence is that he is not as aggressive at the net. So he lifts the shuttle a lot in the net. He don't care. Yeah. Only when he is in the lead a lot, then he let the shuttle pass him and he plays with a fallout step or lunge step into the rear corner. Yeah. And why does he do that? He doesn't do it because he's under pressure. He do it because he wants to save energy. Good reason. Because he's already in the lead. Yeah. And that's what makes it extremely interesting to look at those guys, how they do that. Yeah. A little bit the same on the forehand side defense. Yeah. I was in a coach education session, and one of the coaches said, look here, Chen Long, he makes a mistake. He is out of balance and he jumps to the forehand side with 2 feet. I said, my God, that's not a mistake. Yeah? That is to cover the distance very, very fast, to make a defense jump on your forehand side. Yeah? And defense jump on your forehand side is something that you should practice with very young kids, because they don't have very big legs. They not reach out very far. Yeah? Doing this, you also protect your backhand side, because the backhand side, if I ask somebody what is the easy side and what is the difficult side at the net or just past the service line, everybody always says backhand is easy, forehand side is more difficult. That's not true. If you make a line in height at the net between the forehand and the backhand side, you take the shuttle much higher at the forehand side than you would on the backhand side.
Yes.
Well, you say yes, but almost all coaches say it's the other way around. And that's
well, I
not
guess
true.
in terms of if we're talking about defensive movements, if someone's attacking you with a smash, the
Or a drop.
general rule is take as much on your backhand as possible, right? A backhand grip.
Why?
Well, they say it's it's more firm, more controlled. You can get more power out of the thumb grip than you can out of the forehand grip.
I think it's another reason, and an added additional reason, and that is you got much more options.
Right.
Easier technical options on your backhand side than on your forehand side. But you are lower on your backhand side than on your forehand side in many cases. Not so much in the smash, but especially in drop situations, yeah, or a long drop
Drops.
just behind the service line. Now, if you start to use the defense jump on your forehand side, you don't have to be in the middle anymore. You can go a little bit more towards the backhand side, because that jump, including stretching out with your racket, makes you enables you to take that shuttle on the forehand side relatively easy. You can even play a cross return if you want to. Yeah? Top players are using it. They don't use it as much as I would like youth players to use it. Now, in youth training, it's very seldom that I see coaches doing training like this. And even national team youth members that I had from Denmark and from Holland and Belgium, France also, by the way, they were looking surprised when I asked them to do that, until they did it. And then they almost cannot get away from it, because it is so easy to do and it gives you so many possibilities. Your backhand defense will become a lot stronger if you improve your forehand defense. You're not got this back lunge, this big lunge step anymore to your forehand side where you're totally off balance. No, you make the jump on two legs, and making the jump on two legs gives you the possibility to make a recovery jump, landing, resisting it, and go forward. So your follow-up is much faster. So, yeah, all things are interconnected in that way, Oliver.
Yeah.
You see that I'm starting to sit down on my technical talks chair now. Yeah, sorry.
No, it's good. I like it. Yeah, no, I think this is probably one of the biggest points, because again, when we're trying to coach people, and I've seen it a lot here in the UK. I haven't really trained outside of the UK that much. But we are looking to try and break things down as much as possible, make it as simple as possible for people to understand. But I don't think that gives the full picture to the players, that everything is interconnected. And I think that's one of the failings that we have at the minute in the coaching scene.
I totally agree. And what I see, what I experience, I've been coaching in really a lot of countries, maybe 20, 25 different countries. And not only just for one weekend, but for longer terms, and both in Asia and Europe. What I see is that in many countries there's no focus on footwork. Yeah. So they focus on technique. Denmark was an example of that, by the way, too. Yeah. A lot of focus on technique and a lot of focus on tactics. But how the hell can you do a good technique if you are not there on time?
Right.
Or you come in the wrong way. Yeah. I invented something in footwork with youth training that's called folding the fabric of space. It comes from astrophysicists, of course. Yeah. So it is creating a wormhole. Yeah. Now, what I say is that the start is important and the end is important. That's the only thing that matters. So A and B are important. The travel time in between in youth training is irrelevant. Yeah? Now, it's not really, but I go the other way around, because what they say is, okay, you standing in the middle of the court now, you have to get to your forehand side in the back. You need to do this leg first, that leg first, that leg first, and then you hit the shuttle. Yeah? I say first, I said, okay, I fold the space. Yeah? So I put the start step and the end result together, to do start step, to do the end result. Yeah? And then I fold it out. I make it longer. But I do it the other way around. I said, how do you want to end? This is the end result, and now we're going to do a chain of event back to the middle. How can I accomplish this result with the footwork that I want to use, and not the other way around? Now, what you see in games, that most players come too late or in the wrong way to the end result. I work the other way around, and I start with mini footwork. So the folding of the fabric of space. I put everything together in 1 square meter first, And then I start to fold it out. And then I look from the
Right.
outside inwards instead of inwards outwards.
Okay, that's interesting. So essentially, you're looking at what shot you want the player to play, and then you're going backwards to say how can you get in position to play that perfect shot.
If it's not even the shot, because I want to have multiple shots possibilities. I want to have a
Right.
specific ending. For example, on my forehand side, the most ideal way would be to come to the corner and be able to make a body rotation. Yeah. In English we call that side kick. Yeah. Okay. Now, if you are coming to your forehand side, you want to have multiple options. Yeah. And you can only do that
Yes.
with a certain type of footwork. So with the side kick, for example, the side kick is the most ideal way because you can use body rotation, and it's very fast in the follow up. Yeah. And what we do is the side kick you seldom see in youth. I can almost say I don't see it in youth badminton. Some of the Asian players have got it in Europe. I never see it. Second option is to do the China jump. I would say side kick 10%, China jump 60%, and 30% for the fallout step, the lunge into the corner with your right feet. That's the ideal situation. Yeah. What does it look like in Europe? 99% fallout step.
Yes.
Sometimes a China jump.
Yeah.
Very, very seldom. And never a side kick. Now, that's not so strange if you're working with the archery method. It automatically created. Yeah? You don't have to train it because this is what players automatically will do. They automatically will do the fallout step. So, in my training, no fallout steps. That's what they do by themselves. Yeah? That mistake they already have. I don't have to implement that mistake. Yeah? I implement the China jump. And from the China jump, when that's a habit for them, it's very easy to get to the side kick. Because then it's only a step over with the left foot and then make the rotation if the height of the shuttle is big enough.
Right. Yes.
So it's a different approach to training. Yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely think there's a lot of positives in making sure that your players are getting to a situation where they have the most advantage possible. I think there's a lot of coaching now which is just get there, and as long as you can hit something, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. And we also stimulate it. Yeah. We are applying for winning a game, not about how it's done.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would like to see tournaments in the under 9, the under 11, the under 13, where we see, okay, what was the most inspiring footwork in this tournament? I've seen something there. That player did something. Wow, that's a prize.
Yes.
Yeah? Or this technique that he's using is specific. It's not about winning. It is about doing something right. Yeah? Or the most beautiful rally, longest rally played without mistake. Yeah. So you give the winner of the tournament, I would say, okay, you give him 2 shuttlecocks, and the one with the most beautiful stroke, he gets a racket. To show that, of course, this is just a silly example, yeah, but it's not silly in the sense of what you want to achieve as a badminton coach. I don't need my player to win an under 11 tournament. I want to play that he's playing right and using the right techniques and right footwork. Yeah? Then the winning will come automatically as a byproduct later on.
Yes.
And that's, I think, is something that they work on in Denmark at the moment. They try to being a little bit more inspiring by giving prizes of this kind of things in tournaments. One other very good thing is that it's absolutely forbidden for parents to coach.
Yep.
Big help. Yeah. because
Definitely.
if I think I do not know enough about badminton, then you know also what I think about parents who coaching.
Yes. No technical training, definitely.
So it's there's a lot we can change in badminton just by thinking about how we conduct our training, and it's not done. And I don't see it back in World Badminton Federation courses or national courses. I've never seen a coach education national system where I thought, wow, that's good. Never. I always I feel more things are missing than that they are in there.
Right.
I don't
Okay.
need to learn to be an organizer in a coach education. I want to know more about
Yes.
techniques and about footwork and about details. Yeah.
Yeah, this is also one of the interesting things in badminton right now, I think, in terms of giving people credit just for being good at something rather than having the badge that says that they're good at something.
I still think you should give people credit for the things they're good at. Yeah. And most focus should also go to the things they're good at. So it's much easier to improve something they're already good at. But if you forget the things that are needed and you're not so good at them, that's a big problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is what I see in some of the talented players in Holland at the moment. Everybody saying, wow, they're playing so good, and already at this age, at 17. And I say, okay, take them away from the big tournaments and solve their problems, like I've been talking about right now. It is so simple to break it down for when they come to elite level. Yeah. They are not special at all. Don't treat them as special. Yeah. What I see is parents are praising their kids like they are some kind of superstars. Yeah. I think they need a compliment, and they deserve the compliment if they get one. But we should also point out to them, yeah, but listen, it's good now, but if you want to be good
Yes.
as a senior player, there's a couple of things that I'm strongly doubting about what you're doing today. Yeah. And coaches
Yeah.
are not, they are here and now result people and not looking at the future. And I am much more interested in the future than in the past or in the present.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense. I think there's 2 points here. I think one is this was a slight issue that I had when I was playing competitively when I was younger, in the fact that when I was developing, I was never really told what it would take to actually get to the level I wanted to get to. I was told, oh yeah, you can get there, but there was never really an acknowledgement of, okay, well, if you want to get there, you need to solve this problem, you need to do this, you need to do that. It's just like, oh, well done, you won this thing, or oh, better luck next time. It wasn't really that much feedback for me. So that was, I think, one issue, and an issue I think still exists now, is that a lot of coaches I don't think are pragmatic or honest enough with players. I said, God, I thought you were going to say something.
Yeah, I can definitely say something. Yeah,
Yeah, go for it.
It is when players come here. I ask their coaches if they have a player's profile, and if they send me one, if they have one, it is very simple. They're a right-handed player,
Yes.
have got a little issue with the forehand side and so on. Yeah. I had a player here for 1 month last year, and in that 1 month I wrote a 58-page report about all the issues in detail and gave it with her to the coach. Now that is extremely detailed, yeah. But normally I write at least, if a player is here for a month or 2 months, I write at least 20 pages on the technical issues.
Okay.
I make a report when I start, and I keep on writing all the way to the end, and at the end I'm comparing of the problems I've solved. I give the problems also colors.
Right.
I got red, I got yellow, I got green. What does the improvement look like? Yeah. This forehand stroke is still red. If that's the case after 2 months, I resign as a coach, because then I didn't do my job right. Yeah. I want
Yes.
to change the colors while they're here. Yeah. And the color list is a priority list. The priority list can be 12 points long of problems and things that I want to improve. It's yellow now, and I think you can easily get into green. Yeah. So, and I don't do that from my perspective only. I sit down and talk with the players about it. Where do you think you are?
Right.
What color do you think this is at the moment? What do you think it's now? How does it feel? Yeah. So it's not something, because I can change any color. I can write down that it's red in the beginning, and in the end I write it as green, and nobody knows if I'm right or wrong. That's not the way it works.
Yes.
Yeah. So I record trainings and I talk with the players about it. Yeah. Make a development plan over the next couple of weeks. I also make a prediction how long it takes to change it. Usually I say, if I cannot teach somebody something in 10 minutes, I do something wrong. It's not the player. It's me who don't get the connection with the player to enable him to do what I ask to do. Does that mean they're doing it 100% right? No. But they should be able to do it. A technical stroke that I show, or the footwork that I show. And it should not take longer than 10 minutes to learn it. So they understand it and can do it. Yeah? There's a big difference about knowing, doing it in a practice, and doing it in a game. Yeah? That's also a transition that you got colors. There's the first one to get green is knowing it. If I tell you something, you know it. Then it's doing it. Yeah. That is also quite easy. You can very easy get into green because I do a practice with it and you can do it. Then it's recognizing and doing it in a game. Now that one takes a longer time to get green because there's a whole process that is in front of that. Knowing, doing it in a game.
Yes.
There's a big difference. Yeah. And that is something that you can give colors to a player, and you can talk about it with players, and you can show it in a video. You're actually doing it now. And that's the way we literally work here. But it's not, we cannot have big groups here. So if I got 4 players, 4 to 6, that's the max that I want to have.
Right.
Because we are only two coaches. My wife is also an elite coach. Yeah.
Okay.
So we are 2 coaches, and I don't want to have more than 6 players, because that's the maximum amount of attention we can give and still work in exceptionary detail.
Okay. That's great. I think that's probably something that's not been done very much, and I haven't seen many players with an in-depth player profile. I work with players more on the business end of things, but when I come in, I do ask them for existing documents, etc., and that's not really something that's ever shared with me. So I think that's something unique that you do. I don't know if you see many other coaches doing that or going into that much depth for players.
There's a few, not many. I know a very good friend of my national coach in Holland, Henry Vervoort. He is doing it, and in extreme detail also. Henry did a long time ago. He did my coach education, and after that, we were colleagues in giving coach education in many years. So he is extremely good in that. I know there are some Danish coaches who are doing it, not so detailed, but pretty much going to detail too. Last week I had a session with Hans Christian Vittinghuis where we analyzed his game, and he told us that that in the Danish national team they were not looking as detailed as we did into his game.
Yeah.
That was a big compliment to get. So that was very nice. If a professional player who has been on that level, number 8 of the world, and so well known around the world, says, hey, the level of details that you work in is very deep. It's even deeper than what we did in the national team. That's great, and that's also what I want for youth players. If we don't do the best for a youth player, that means we take the opportunity away from them to become a top player. So, and I don't create all top players, but every player that has been here cannot say that he has not been treated like a top player.
Right. I think that's an amazing thing, because I don't think that is the case in most environments that players go to. They're thought of immediately as either they're going to make it or not make it. They've either got it or not got it. And that dictates how the coaches treat them, train them, coach them. So I think that's a great benefit that you have in your work. I'm curious, what actually made you start to go into this much detail with this? Because if there aren't many people actually in the badminton world and the coaching world that are going into this detail, what is it that made you go into that much detail?
First of all, it's my own interest in the details, and the difference is also in the details. It's very easy to make an overall picture of a player, but why is it like that? Why does he move like that in the forehand side? What makes him so special in this stroke? It must be for example, with Vittinghus, he tries to take every shot at the net out his backhand side. He even adjusts his footwork, where he puts his left feet far behind his right feet in order to get to his forehand side and take it with the backhand. That's an extreme detail in order to take your strokes with the backhand at the net instead of with the forehand. This is one of the things that make him special. If you don't research that or look into that, you will never know. You would not even find it special what he's doing. He's just doing this, And I try to, when I look at videos in YouTube, you can look at them in normal speed. You can also look at them in slow motion. You can go to 0.25% of the speed, but you can also stop it. Stop the movement at all, and then go dot 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 comma dot dot comma 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 dot. And it shows that there are 30 points in a second. 30 dots. So I can click 30 times on the dot, and then 1 second has passed. And I was needed to do that in order to see the details, what happened in a second. And there are not many coaches who want to analyze really dot by dot, but I do. And I teach my coaches how to do it, and to do it in a way that it goes relatively fast. You give me 2 minutes of your game, and within a few hours I tell you what your game is like and what your problems are.
Right.
So that's also what you learn from details.
Yes. That's amazing, and I think that's a real credit to yourself, to ask yourself to do those types of things, to be obsessive enough to go into that much detail. I think that is the necessity it takes to really get to the top level of these things, and it definitely feels like you are on the cutting edge and at the top of the sport in terms of developing the coaching philosophies, the training schemes, developing how you treat players, not just how you think about the sport, but how you treat the players as well. So I think that's a massive credit to you and your philosophy and what you're doing.
It's something that I almost would like to say come natural, because that's the way I am. And it started quite some time ago, because I started this in 2011 when we started to do training camps in Denmark on a very small island, Årø, which only got 1,200 inhabitants. And people say, how the hell do you think players will come to a small island like this? I said, if you bring quality, everybody will come. And
Yes.
sure enough, it filled up with players 10 years long.
Mhm.
Yeah. Players were coming all over the place, and I did a different strategy. We had 5 badminton courts there, and there were 7 coaches in the hall at any given time. 1 on each court, and 2 running around as consultants to all the other coaches. We had different assignments, so we were looking at specific details. Coaches had to talk with their players to tell them what they were going to do, and after the training they had to sit down and talk about if they achieved it or not. Yeah. And that was the start, and we did that with groups of like 20 players. We had 5 courts, so we had 20 players. And then I thought, well, yes, it's good, but it can be done better. So you can even go into better detail by only having 4 or 6 players, having them stay with you for 2 months or longer, yeah, and work out every single detail that is necessary for their game in order to improve.
Right.
What you also see, and that is the negative side of it, if you don't have the top sport mentality, you will fall through. At the end of the 2 months, you know that it's nothing for you. Yeah?
Right.
Because the honesty that you get from this result is really a test for yourself as well. I had one player from Great Britain, and he thought he was very good. And I showed him all the things that were leaking in order to become a professional badminton player. And he just ignored it. He was just in in denial of those things. Well, if you are, then that's fine with me, but don't use my time, and it's better that you find somebody else who is in the same denial as you are. Yeah. So and I'm also very honest to that. If you're not good enough and you're not willing to change, I will tell you. Yeah. Because in our badminton hall, it's not only a badminton court. There's the treadmill, like we talked about before, but I got also all the facilities. I got a climbing wall in the hall. I got a monkey bar where they have to do the pull-ups and the push-ups and so on.
Yeah.
And I showed them the pictures of Tai Chu Ji, where her muscles are laying on top of her back, yeah, and her 6-pack is actually an 8-pack. It is tremendous how much muscle this girl got. Yeah. And if I look at some of the players who have a body fat percentage of over 30 for the girls, while 15 is the absolute minimum for girls, but they should be between 15 and 20 and not above that, while boys can be around 6 if needed. Yeah. And that's also something you got to take into account. Yeah. If you are having a body fat percentage of over 30, you're not going to be a top badminton player. It's as simple as that.
Right. Yes.
And those things.
Yeah, and that makes.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say that makes total sense. And it's interesting that you're now talking about the physical aspect of the sport. Most of the talk that we've had so far in terms of your philosophy has been mainly around technical, a little bit tactical, but you are focused on the physical as well.
You have to be completely all round. So it's I say many times that I almost did a medical study in order to be a badminton coach, because I want to know about those things. I'm almost a physiotherapist in the sense of that I want to know how to treat treatments, how to recognize when things goes wrong, how to avoid it, that it goes wrong. You have to be a mental coach, so you need to be able to motivate your players, not just on a coach level. No, I want to do that on a higher level as well. So you have to be completely all round to do that. I'm not as all-round as I would like to be, because I focus mainly on singles at the moment. I have been focusing on doubles before, but it is a very big chunk if you want to be on this level on in all the games. Yeah. So
Yes.
I would say men's single, women's double. There are the things that I'm mostly interested in. And then in the end, I found men's double least interesting. It's power game. I don't like it so much. I like women's double much more, because there's much more technique and tactics involved in ladies doubles than it is in men's doubles. That doesn't mean that I don't think it's great to watch men's doubles. I do think that.
Yes.
I just think there's not such a challenge in there for me as a coach, as an all-round knowledgeable coach.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, the basis for men's doubles is you need to have a big smash or you're not going to make it, essentially. So
Yeah, and you have to be able to do it a few hundred times. Yeah, so so
Yes.
and it's
Yeah, it's
just
crazy.
not my game. It just not is. So that doesn't mean it's not nice. It's spectacular to see. Yeah, but so.
yeah, it's just a different type of game, right? It's just got different elements than the other styles of play, the other styles of game.
And it's the same as in the mixed doubles. A good friend of mine in Denmark, Thomas Leyborn, he was world champion mixed double, and in 2012, and he changed the game because his girl could smash like a man from the back line, and he was actually playing at the net and killing the shovels. Yeah, so he wanted to get to the net as fast as possible. And that was very interesting in the mixed double, and that was also when the game changed, also in China, because you didn't smash at the girl anymore. They were so good in defending that it was better to smash at the men than to smash at the girls. Yeah, and which makes that also a very interesting game. But as I say, you cannot be a specialist in everything, and my specialty is singles and ladies double.
So the second point that I was going to make earlier is that it seems like that your coaching style and your coaching philosophy is targeted towards, I guess, more elite players. Do you think that this is a system that can be implemented from the very beginning of a player coming into the badminton hall starting to play? And we should just be focusing on giving them all the tools so that they could get to that elite level?
It's an interesting question, because it's only since the last half a year that we have our own badminton hall. You know, I built it. The build was finished in February, and because it was finished, we thought, okay, let's have the local kids, give them an opportunity to play here. So I get 20 players in who could not play badminton, and I had to rethink a little bit about how I wanted to teach them badminton, because I've not been working with kids who could not play badminton, not so much at least, and that's where my new book is all about, because I had to really rethink it, and the things that I told you about the archery movement and sitting down on the floor and making possible things impossible, and doing obstruction training where the racket is following the feet and the feet is following the racket. All those kind of things I invented the last half a year in order to teach these kids who cannot play badminton to play badminton. And we're actually pretty successful with them. Most coaches, if I show them videos of the kids, they don't believe that they're only playing a couple of months. So I tend to say, if you really want, then you're always welcome here. It doesn't matter if you're an elite player or if you're a new beginner. I don't care.
Right.
As long as you're enthusiastic about badminton, you are welcome to come here. And you have to be able, you must be willing to do everything that you need to do. Then
Right.
there is another thing that is quite important, which we have not talked about yet, and that is, do I want talented players? Not really. Because talented players are lazy and they trust on their talents. They're
Right.
not very willing to learn new things because it's outside their talent environment. It's outside their talent
Right.
box. Yeah. What we see in Denmark, and that's also something that you can talk with Mikael about, that is the second line players very often give the top players, not the first line good youth players. The first time good youth players are very seldom getting through to the top. It's the second
Right.
line that is coming up. Yeah? There was a research in Denmark done, not a research, a test, something like a test, where one of the elite coaches that I know there, he put an inquiry, he did a questionnaire in to coaches and say, who is going to be Denmark's best players in 10 years from now? And he sent that to
Right.
all the elite coaches, and he get answers back.
Right.
Not everybody answers back, but he get answers back. None of them were right.
Yeah.
So we are wrong about our perception of talent.
Yes.
Talent is something that is very difficult to grasp. Yeah. It's got an X factor to it. The X factor,
Yes.
you must be a little bit mad. I think most people will say I'm a little bit mad too, as a coach. Yeah. So you need to be a
Yeah.
little bit crazy in order to get there. Yeah. Somebody like Thomas Leybourne, I think he's a very good example, because he was a very good youth player, stopped playing badminton, got a car, got a house, got a good life, and then he decided he wanted to be a badminton player again. He sold his car, he sold his house, went back into his parents' house, and as 26-year-old he goes back to the national team. And he was nothing,
Right.
but he became world champion.
Yeah.
He was not guided through the system from youth to elite and became a world champion. He was out, he was a dropout and became a world champion.
Yeah.
So, and I think we have a lot of those players out there, and they never get a chance because the governing bodies, sport bodies, they didn't recognize them as talents. I would say be graceful if you're not recognized as a talent, because you got a bigger chance to get to the top. You have to do more for it, but that's also one of the characteristics of players who make it. They had to do much more effort than all the others. Yeah?
Right.
And they had to lose a lot of times. So they're used to losing. They love winning, because it was after all this losing the winning comes. Talent players are
Yeah.
used to win, and then they lose. That's fucking shit. I don't want to lose. They stop playing badminton.
Yeah.
So there's really a lot to it, and I just believe that parents who are willing to invest in their kids, if the kids really want, that's something you say thank you for to the parents and to the players. Yeah. While kids who gets everything from the federation, if you get something for free, it's worth nothing.
Yes.
You throw it away very easy. If you really have to work hard for it, then it's get value. It starts to get value because you had to do something for it.
Yes. Yeah, that makes total sense. And I think for me, the more I'm involved with the elite end of sports, it really, in my perception, it really comes down to the mentality. That is the defining factor between a successful player and a non-successful player. It doesn't matter how talented you are, but being talented and then being pampered and having your ego blown up because everyone thinks you're great and you've been in the top 3 for all of your junior career, that can have a very negative effect on a player.
Definitely. Totally agree with that. So, and it takes time for federations to realize that.
Yes.
So I think that if you want to be a real top player, you need to do a couple of things. You need to see what the competition in Asia is like, for example. The reason why I say that is my local kids here got something to fight for. They living in a metal hut. Yeah. Some of them don't have a racket or don't have badminton shoes. If they get good, they get a racket. They get badminton shoes. Yeah. They got something to fight for, to be someone. Yeah. In Europe, who gives a damn? If I'm not good in badminton, I go to a nice house anyway. I have good food. My parents take care of me anyway. Yeah? I have a great life. I don't have to work so hard anymore. So they need to come here to have a look what it takes.
Yes.
In Asia.
Well, I also think that there's a bit of an issue there as well in terms of there is a huge focus on education here, which is probably a good thing, but it does take you away from focusing all of your effort on one particular goal, one particular endeavour, which I think is negative. And then badminton in Europe and in North America is very much a middle class sport. And that has a negative effect as well.
Well, you know that I got a very strong opinion about school.
Yes.
So my opinion about school is something you can do all your life. It's not something that is connected to a specific time in your life. Now, governments have made it a part of your life. You have from 6 years old to 18 years old, you need to go to school, if you like it or not. I don't know about you, but I started to get interested in learning when I was about 30 years old. And then I wanted to know everything. In between 8 years old and 15 years old, I hated the bloody school. I didn't like it at all.
Yes.
That's not for everybody, but I didn't like it. I was a practical guy. I wanted to do things with my hand. I wanted to work, I wanted to sweat. Yeah. Later on in life, I started to study. I've been giving lectures to universities while I left school myself when I was 14 years old. Yeah. So that doesn't mean that you are becoming a nobody because you not have been to school. Yeah? Now, sport is age related. If you are not doing age related training at a certain time in your life, you will never learn it. You will always be behind. Yeah.
Right.
With badminton, you need so many skills. You need physical, mental, tactical, techniques. There are so many skills you need to learn. Yeah? And those skills you learn from when you're 9 till you're 15, 16 years old. You can pick up those skills pretty easy. This time, they also have to have the focus on school. Now, hormones is racing through their body. They're not interested in school. They're interested in many other things, but not school so much. So, doing sports, stopping your school for sport, is one of the best things you can do in your life. I don't say that you should not study. Even if you stop your school, you should still do some projects. For example, if you go abroad, you have to learn English, you have to learn a language. Now, I don't know about you, but I was extremely bad in languages. I could nearly speak Dutch. Yeah? Now I'm in my 60s. I speak Dutch, I speak German, I speak Danish, I speak English. I understand a little bit Bahasa, Indonesia. Yeah, I speak 5 languages. Yeah. And that doesn't mean I'm good at it all, but I learned it. Yeah. Now that's the way to learn it. I never learned it in school. My English in school, I had a 5. I was a lower 4, I think. I even never had an A on it. Always low. Yeah.
Right.
And I speak reasonably good English at the moment. Yeah. So there's not a problem with that. And that goes for many kids. Yeah. I've done together with the parents of a player, I had in Denmark. This player was not very good in school. He didn't like it, he hated it, he fought with the teachers. And his parents, both teachers, de-schooled him. So he went out of school. And he came into my academy because he wanted to play badminton. Yeah. So for 2 years he'd been out of school. Then he came back into school again, and he was ahead of everybody else in his class.
Right.
So of course it helped a little bit that his parents were also teachers, and they told he worked in his father's in a company. He just worked in a company making roofs with straw. What do you call it? Fiddle?
A thatched roof.
Thatched roof. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he worked there, and he did training in my academy. Yeah. And he came out a better student than he was, even though he's been out of school for 2 years. So I'm a firm believer of deschooling for a temporary period. It doesn't mean that you totally have to drop out and do nothing about school, but I do think school is very, very over-exaggerated. And I had a discussion with a teacher one time, and I said, if you give me a group of 20 students from 6 until 18, out of that 20 players, out of the 20 kids, 18 will be in the national team if they've been doing badminton. With you, they're not even average on the school level. So you're doing a very poor job. Why are they not elite thinkers if you're a good teacher?
Right.
And if I talk with really a lot of people, and they say, and I ask them always, what do you use from the time what you learned in school in the job that you're doing now? Most of them don't get any further than maybe 10%.
Yeah.
90% of the time is wasted. I don't say that goes for doctors and lawyers and so on, yeah? But for the vast majority, you don't even do what you studied for.
Yes.
And still, it takes up 10 to 15 years of your life. In those 10 or 15 years, you could have become a world champion.
Yeah, I definitely think there are definitely some negatives or some drawbacks of being in the school environment, we might call it. Being in a classroom, just being given a lot of information, and being sat there and given exams every week or every month. I don't think that's particularly productive for a lot of kids, especially if we're talking about practically getting them working, getting them living a good life, etc. So I think in your way of having players focus on something they're passionate about, a single endeavour, whether that's badminton or it could be something else, I think that would be very powerful. But I also think the coach, the person that's teaching them, is extremely important. So yes, I think if kids are coming to you, they are probably going to do very well because you are someone that will push them. You are someone that has high standards. You are someone that will think about things in a broader sense rather than just, can I tick this off a sheet?
Yeah, of course it's got a lot to do with who you send them to and what you expect. Yeah? I want the best out of every situation for kids.
Yes.
And if it's about doing the dishes here in the house or the way they eat at the table, I will hit the table if it's wrong. Yeah. Or if they're not doing things right. Yeah. Or if, for example, also here we had players from Europe who paid money to get here, and they let the local kids collect the shuttles. I said, "Oh, stop!
Right.
Stop! Local kids, come here, sit next to me. Europe kids, collect the shuttles. Wipe the floor. Yeah, you're nothing better. So you are exactly the same here, and you treat everybody with the same respect. Finished.
Yeah.
If I teach something to a player here, they got a duty, and the duty is to learn to use what they learned from me, to use that on somebody who is less good than themselves.
Right.
So our 12-year-olds have to learn the 8-year-olds the things. Now, there's two good things for it. First of all, they think about what they learned, yeah? And I can see if they cut the things in the right way. Do they get what I want them? Yeah? Or do they have their own interpretation of it? Yeah? How can I control that? How can I even steer that a little bit better so they understand it the right way? So it's a test for myself to see if the things that I teach my pupils, if they can teach that to younger kids, yeah? And the way they do it tells something about my own players. How smart are they? How much do they remember? We do a lot of recall training. And recall training is you play a rally, yeah, and when the rally is finished, I say, okay, tell me what strokes you've been playing and where you're going and what you thought. In the beginning, they say, what? I don't know what I did. I said, well, that's not so good.
Yep.
Yeah. And that I extend all the time. I did it also in a big hall, yeah, where on Oru on the 5 courts, where I got 7 coaches, and then one of them whistled, recall time. Then the coaches have to go in, they have to stop the rally, and they have to explain what they've been doing. Yeah. Now that's the easy part. Then I say, okay, what did you do 2 rallies ago? Yeah? Because if you do something and you get a point and you don't repeat it, you're bloody stupid.
Yep.
That's tactics. Yeah. So things should come back one way or another. And if they change, they say, well, I did this, but I don't do that anymore because he is anticipating on that. Most of them don't do that. I've even in Denmark experienced where I told one player, okay, you play to one corner only. You only play to the round the head. All your strokes. Yeah. And he said, yeah, but he will find out. I said, let's see. Yeah. He didn't find out. When I asked the player afterwards, what was the tactic? Where did he play? He said, oh, he played me everywhere. Yeah. Why does he have that feeling? That's because he has to run back to the middle all the time.
Right.
So I told him, play to the round head. The only thing you do is you score somewhere else. That's all. Yeah. And that in that way I go to great lengths. I also do it in coaching, in games. The first 11 points, I say, whatever happens, in the first 11 points to my player, you score only in the forehand side at the net. Only there. Even if you can score somewhere else, you don't do it. You score on the forehand side at the net. Yeah. Then we come to 11. I'm now 100% sure that the coach of the opponent will say to him, you have to watch out your forehand corner because he scores there every time. I say to my player, whatever happens, you never score at the forehand side again. You score anywhere else, but not at the forehand side. So what happens is the coach of the opponent has helped me because he have moved his player to his forehand side at the net, creating space in the 3 other corners that I want to play. So he helped me to create space on court. The next thing is the opponent looked back to his coach and said, what the fuck are you talking about? He's never played at my forehand side. Yeah? Yes. And small thing, this is a small example, but I use it in really a lot of different ways, yeah? And it works.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that disharmony between the player and the coach causes a lot of problems. So that is a mind game, definitely worth employing.
It's fun to think about, and it's also fun for your player because you get this opportunity to have a good laugh about it, yeah? That's it. One other little example that I would like to share with you is I had not so much to tell to my player. He was easily winning the game. I said, okay, what we do is we look at the opponent. And when he looks at us, we make sure we look at him pretty much the whole time. And when he looks at us, when we see his eye contact is coming, we both smile. So we're not looking at each other. So the opponents see me standing here, him standing there, and we both smiling. We make him wonder, why the smile about? What is happening? Are they laughing at me? Yeah. And and that is small things, and they work.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's quite interesting how easily quite a lot, and actually I would say most players get thrown off their game.
Yep.
Very emotional. It could be as simple as you, when the rally's over, you throw the shuttle at them instead of hand them the shuttle, and all of a sudden they're annoyed. They've got an issue with you. They want to really hit it really hard, and they've totally changed their game plan from I'm going to be really smart and do this shot and this shot. And it's how hard can I hit it? Can I hit them?
Yeah, it's completely right. There's really, I got a lot of examples like that. But yeah, that's it's just a little mind game, and it works. So it's fun. Yeah. It's also fun to do. So.
Yes, I always liked watching Chris Langridge when he was playing matches. The mind games was something of a speciality for him. Picking a fight with the umpire, the player, everything. He didn't care.
Well, we've seen it in the Danish Open with Carola Marin against the girl from India.
Sindhu.
Yeah, where they both get a yellow card because they're fighting each other. Yeah, and
yes.
Marin is extremely good in this psychological game. So I don't know if you noticed, but she runs when the game is finished. She goes very fast to her bag, take the bag, and go behind the umpire chair, where she forces the opponent to go in front of it, which is a much difficult way to do it. All those kind of smart, and she do it on purpose. So that's very funny. That's very funny to see. Well, we covered already a lot of things, Oliver.
We have indeed. It's been a great talk. I think one last thing that I do want to talk to you about is, why did you decide to focus on being a coach and becoming a professional coach? It's something that I think most people see as not that financially rewarding, so steer in other directions. And there's a big phenomenon here in the UK that we have people with coaching qualifications, but they never use them. They maybe have a full-time job and do a bit of the weekend. But you've definitely thrown yourself fully into it, and I'm curious why you've decided to do that.
Of course, the very first thing is that I like to do it. So that's a very motivative thing. Yeah, I don't think it is not rewarding financially. I think if you're a good coach, there's always money to be made. Yeah? It's maybe not always the way you want it. In the beginning, I was needed to take club trainings and so on, which I really do not like so much. Then I started to do camps, summer camps, and they were quite successful. And you notice that if you are specializing in something, which I am, then people are willing to pay for it. And that makes it worthwhile of doing it. Now, I think it would be difficult for me to do the same thing that I'm doing here in Denmark, because there I need to earn a lot more money than I need to earn in Vietnam. Yeah. So it's relatively easy when you live in Asia. Yeah. Another thing is that I had my own company for a long time, and I've been making quite good money before. That helps a little. It's not. I'm not retired with a lot of money, but I'm also not somebody who worries too much. Yeah. So that helps. It's absolutely not something that is the most important thing. The most important thing is that you're passionate about something, and if you are, you get other people to be interested in working with you. And I give advice to federations and to players. I write articles and books, which helps a little bit. It helps not so much that you get money, a lot of money out of it, but you get to be known. Yeah? And being known, make sure that players are coming to you, and that way you get money again. Yeah. So writing for me has always been about exposing yourself to the public and let them know that you're there and what you got to offer. And that usually works. So it works in a way that I don't need tens of players. I don't need hundreds of players. I just need a handful here and a handful there every year, and that's enough. Yeah. And that way you can also deliver quality. If I got somebody who is here for 2 months, living here, eating here, talking to you every day, working in the hall, it's very rewarding to do it that way. Yeah. And people are willing to pay for that. Yeah. And especially with that second line of players coming up, where parents say, listen, I rather prefer spending this money on my kids now in this age, and they do something about top sport, then they go out to a disco and drink and smoke, or even worse. Yeah? So getting the right mentality to your kids, I think that's quite important as well.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I agree with that, and I find that very interesting. You mentioned before that you went through some different training programs in Denmark, and I assume you did in the Netherlands as well, in Holland. Just your experience from them, what do you think they are doing right or wrong in the process of developing coaches?
Oh. How long time you got?
What the 2 or 3 worst things, I guess?
First of all, education takes a long time. I do online coach education with a small group of coaches, and the first group I started 4 years ago, and they've now been with me for 3 years every single Sunday morning. So most coach educations is a weekend or a day, or if you're very interested, a whole week. Yeah, we do 3 years every single week. Yeah,
right.
So that is coach education the way that I think it should be done. That's professional education. Yeah. Then we come to the subject that we talked about before, and that is they talk about a lot of things in coach education, but not about badminton. They talk about organizing tournaments, be a manager, or those kind of things. If you want to be a badminton coach, you want to know something about badminton, yeah, and you want to hear things that you never heard before. Now, it doesn't matter in what coach education I will go to. I all heard it before. Probably you have heard it before. Maybe told in a little bit different way, but it's the same story. It's the same wine, just another bottle. Yeah. Now, I guarantee you that if you come here or you join my coach education, every week you will be surprised about the things you hear because you never heard them before.
Right.
And that is, I think, the challenge is not to get a big group of coaches who you tell a general thing. The thing is to get a small group of coaches who you developed in the detailed things that you are interested in as a coach, and try to spread it that way. And it succeeds because people don't want to leave the coach education. There is no set time for it. I don't say it takes 3 years. It can take 2 months if you want. Yeah, but it can also. The people who are here a longer time now, there are 3 who are now in the 4th year. Yeah, those people say every year, but you still got a lot. You still got a lot to talk about. Yeah, I'm not finished. Yeah, and they joined again and again and again. Yeah, and nobody stops. So and that inspiring thing is missing in coach education.
Yes.
if you come to my education and I can make sure that you go back home and say, shit, I want a lot more. Yeah. Then I got somebody who's interested in badminton. And all of a sudden, it clicked and you got it. And you say, hey, this is only the beginning. There's much more. Yeah. And I want that.
Yes.
And I missed it in coach education. It is like you have to be a what you call it, a qualified coach. So I have to do this. No, you should not have to do it. You should want to do it.
Yes.
Yeah? So that's in Holland they don't have a national coach education anymore, which is really terrible. They followed the European Union sports certificate, which they call it Sports Leader 1, 2, 3 and 4, which is absolutely crap, and they realize that now too, and they stopped it. Denmark said, okay, we don't believe in it, so Denmark had Kenneth Larsen with the trainer school in Aalborg, which was the only badminton training school where you could actually go to school and become a coach, which I think was great. But most coach educations in Europe are below the standard I would like. And in Asia, there are many times not even coach education. There are not everywhere, but most of them are good players. And I've been good, train with me, and you'll be good too. No, you're not.
Right. Yeah, it's very difficult, that crossover between players who have played and they've learnt from other coaches and they've played at a decent level, and then trying to coach someone else, not realizing that these players are not the same as them. They don't think in the same way. They don't act in the same way.
There are a few former top players who have become very good coaches. Kenneth Larsen is one of them, and Park in Yobo Park in Japan, who works in Japan now, is another one who was from South Korea. Keeman Park in the doubles and mixed doubles were tremendously good players. And he is also a very, very good coach. There are more coaches like that, but there are not so many. I see more coaches, former top players who become a coach who are not successful than who are successful. So, and you see that in...
I'm not surprised by that.
No. You also see that in other sports. So,
yes, that's true.
And the other way around, you also see it, of course. The ones who are good, they are really good.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. So if there's someone out there that is wanting to become the new version of Ron Daniels, they want to become the new wave of badminton coaches, what do you think are the first 2, 3, 4 steps that they should be doing or thinking about?
First of all, you got to be completely crazy about badminton to do what I do. That's one thing. Another thing is you need to have a wife or a partner that support it, because if you don't, you have a problem. And I hear from many coaches, listen, if I do this now, I have to give up my marriage. I said, well, you should.
Right.
And then so that's a very important thing. And another thing is this curiosity. You need to be curious about everything. Yeah? I connect things in life to badminton training. Yeah, like folding space. Yeah? Folding space is what comes from an interest I have in astrophysics, and it relates to me to badminton. So what if I put one corner to the other one and let's see what's in between instead? Yeah, and I have that in many things. So I very easy to connect things, make badminton more interesting. So my badminton training knowledge is not coming from badminton, it's coming from all the other things around it. So you have to be curious, really curious, and you have to be lucky to get in contact with the right people. I've been in contact with a few people in my life that made a difference, and I didn't realize it at that moment, but I realize it now how important it was.
Yes.
Yeah, and that is, and of course, yeah. Don't stay in your own small area. Yeah, if I stayed in Holland, I would be a crap coach now by now. Yeah, I went to Denmark. I went to Germany. I went to Indonesia for a long time. I went to Vietnam. If you want to know how it's done in Asia, you have to be here. You cannot just say, okay, I take a holiday of 2 weeks and find out how badminton is in Asia. It doesn't work that way.
Yes.
Yeah? You need to be here. You need to experience and feel it and live it and smell it. Yeah? And that's how you get to meet the people here who are interesting and to find out for yourself how it works.
Right. Yeah, I think that's fascinating, and I would agree with all of that. I mean, if finding a network of like-minded people is important, as you said there, getting around the right people to influence you in a positive way is so important, I think. And yeah, the curiosity. I definitely think that's important. You're not going to get very far if you're not curious about the sport, but also bringing things in from other aspects to benefit your coaching or the sport. So yeah, I think they're great points. I've been having a great conversation, and I've really enjoyed our talk today, and our talk on the other days we've spoken. If you would like to talk about your book, you've mentioned it a couple of times throughout the talk we've had now. So what is the book? When is it coming out, or when are you hoping for it to come out? And who are the type of people that should be buying the book?
I already have one book out at the moment, and that's about footwork in singles, but it's in Dutch. There's a lot of QR codes in it, so what I find is that it's been sold in many other countries as well. And you use an app where you can just put your phone on the page and it translates right away. So there's a possibility there, but it's not the easiest. The book that I'm writing now is about youth training in general, so how to make sure that you give all the players the opportunity to become a good player. And there I talk about a lot of the subjects that I'm talking about now, like the archery system, and how to avoid getting into those problems. And the book is again in very, very detailed description, and there are even more QR codes in it because people are very enthusiastic about it. So we already made at this moment more than 100 small video clips.
Oh, wow.
I sent some to you on your Facebook, so you can have a quick look at it. The book is in English this time, which is not my first language, so it takes a little bit longer time. My Dutch book I wrote in 3 months. This one I calculate on that I'm finished around March in writing next year, and then it will be out just after the summer, so when the new season is starting, I reckon. It will be about 300 pages. So it's not a thin book. My other book was first book was 500 pages, and my publisher said you have to get rid of some of it because it's going to be too big. So it ended up 350 pages. But this one is going to be 350 pages as well. And what we do is we connect a website to it. So we make a book and we make a website where people who buy the book automatically get a member of the website and can come up with questions and updates and so on that we would like to do with the book, because things are changing and they're changing very rapidly. Yes. So well, maybe you invite me one more time when the book is finished and we can talk about that one.
Definitely. You also mentioned about your online coach education. Is that something open for people to apply for? And if so, how can they get in touch with you?
It is. It is open to for everybody who is interested. At the moment, we got one coach education that is in Dutch, but we also have it in English, so that's not a problem at all.
Okay.
It is minimum 1 year that I do. Otherwise, I just don't want to invest the time in it. It is
Right.
it is a lot of information. So I really like to use at least the 40 weeks. It's not a complete year. It's 10 months. Because the summer
Yes.
holiday we take out 2.5 months. So we got about 40 times where we meet, and for that you can contact me on my Facebook site.
We'll make sure we link it here, and we'll link it on social media as well. What type of coaches should be looking to join your coaching program?
Everybody who's interested in badminton, really. So it's
Okay.
I don't have in the past I said the less you know about badminton the better it is, because then I don't have to work backwards. I can just start walking forwards, because
Yes.
if many people come to me and say, well, I already have World Badminton Federation 1, and then I say, oh shit, I have to unlearn some stuff again. It's a little bit over exaggerated, but of course it's nice if you have some experience in coaching a little bit, so you can relate to the things that we talk about. But I don't have a minimum to say, well, you minimally need this. It's the same as with the books. It's not a book that reads like a Roman. You don't start on page 1 to 250. You got different pages with different subjects, and okay, now I'm working on the round head up page 72, that's round head, and on page 115 there's something about the round head too. So it's much more a book that you take with you in the whole show your players, or be at home and study about and look at some videos which are in the book as an example. So not
That's
really
awesome.
minimum requirements. I love to talk with everybody who's interested.
That's great. Well, thank you very much, Ron. It's been an absolute delight speaking to you, and I'm sure we're going to be speaking a lot in the future.
I hope so, Oliver. It's been really a pleasure. It's a long talk. I don't realize, but we are more than 2 hours in the talk already. So
Yeah, I think that happened last time as well. We just keep going.
yeah. You put in a dine and I keep talking. Yeah.
No, it's good. It's good. I really like it. I enjoy it. You know, when you have things worth saying, then we need to hear them.
Yeah, good. I'm looking forward to see the final result, or to hear the final result of the podcast, and I'm sure that we keep in contact and we keep on talking together.
Definitely, Ron. So thank you very much, and I will let you go.
Thank you very much.